Good evening. We bypassed the usual committee meeting for this, and I'm going straight to City Council, partly because we didn't have it ready by the time for the committee, but so I'm here to present that to the entire council. This is the third quarter. It's required by statute to provide a quarterly financial report, so and then it gets published into the newspaper. The total revenues for the city on the third quarter is $26,587,527, and the expenses are $38,232,132. The revenue comprises 43% of the city's funds, while the expenses are 63% of the city's funds, and there's some good reason for that. I'll just go straight to those two reasons directly, and then you'll understand why. During the 2013-2014 or 2012-2013 fiscal year, $6,281,526 was expended for the refinancing of the sewer bonds. So that's carried forward in the fund balance. It was the bond proceeds were received in the prior fiscal year, and then this budget is based on revenues and expenditures, but it doesn't show the fund balance from that carryover from the sale of those bonds. And then because the bonds were called in November of this year, it affected this year's budget. So that's $6.2 million or almost $6.3 million worth of the difference. The other part is $2.2 million worth of Hamilton's indoor recreation certificates of participation for the Hamilton Indoor Recreation Center, which we also defeased because of savings in there, and paid those off this year out of the corpus of the Hamilton Fund. If you take those two things into account, that pretty much washes out the revenues minus the expenditures because that total is about $8 million. And then on going back to the top, we're at 66% of revenue collected in the general fund to an expenditure of 70%. And during this September, this period is through June 30th of this year, which represents 3 quarters. So the benchmark you try to do is 75%. That's 75%. The reason, and we're under about 5%. The revenues for the property tax, which amounts for about 35% of the general fund, is partly because we don't receive the second large payment until last week of July, first part of August. And then the rest of it would be the quarterly income from state shared revenues, liquor tax, that sort of thing. The street fund has the same impact. We receive quarterly financial information from them, or quarterly payments for state shared revenues, and so that's why we have 60% of our revenue there and 59% is expended. The street fund is seasonal in nature, so a lot of the street repairs and things are done mostly in the summertime, as evidenced by all the construction activity. Parks and Rec is also seasonal. The reason we have 150% of our revenues in there is because of that $2.3 million that was transferred to pay for the debt, and that'll be reflected in for the Hamilton Indoor Recreation Center, and the offsetting $2.2 million in expenses. The 1912 is right on track at 73% and 75%. Not much to comment there. The Arts Fund is also on track, 62% of revenue versus 51% of expenses. The large outlay there is Farmers Market, and it's just getting started. The Transit Center is on track as well with expenditures. It's the new fund that we started this year for the new Transit Center. The Water Fund, it's contagious. Water Fund is at 65% collected. Now, in the Water Fund, about over 50% of our revenues are derived from volume consumption fees, and so the base fees make up for the operations throughout the course of the year, except for that volume piece. The volume piece and revenue, part of that revenue stream, comes in the months of July, August, September. So we'll be seeing that other percent come in over the next few months. We're already seeing a fairly large volume impact because of the hot months in May. In the sewer fund, that's a very consistent fund. The revenues are at 36%, but that's distorted because of the issue of the bond proceeds that I had mentioned earlier. But if you take that out of the equation, we're right on track with sewer fund at everything else being equal, 75% of the year. Sanitation fund is exactly the same. Fleet fund is doing well. Information systems, the same. There's nothing outstanding to really talk about there. The thing that I would want to talk about is some of the negative things in the water construction fund, sewer construction fund, and Hamilton Parks and Rec. We've been, in the last 6 weeks, had some phenomenal interest rate environment increases nationally, and we invest in agencies. And because we invest in agencies, when rates go up, bond prices go down. And so that has had a negative impact on our interest income. And I predict that will happen throughout the rest of the next 3 months. But we've got some precautionary methods in place that will help alleviate that. So that's my goal, and it's been something of my top concern over the next few months, and we'll be monitoring that. So that's the reason for those negative revenue streams in the construction funds for revenue. The positive news is that we have funds in the corpus of that through accumulation, and so we'll be able to maintain our projects on track and on time. And with that, I guess I'll leave it at that and ask for any questions.
Council, Walter?
Thanks, Don. You hit all but one of the ones I had marked, and I apologize for not speaking to you earlier, but we were a little busy today.
Yes, we were. But
with other stuff, primarily the budget. Sewer fund salaries and benefits, 312%.
I'm sorry.
Yep. Is that a misplaced
decimal
point?
No. Math works.
The math works, but that's not correct. I'm going to have to go back. I apologize. Hang on a minute. Maybe I have the answer to that. It looks like an incorrect tabulation linking cell for some reason, because that's not even close. We should be about 75% of that number. Let me check. Thank you for catching that.
I don't know that I caught it. I just saw the big percentage.
Should have caught it.
Well, like I said, you got a few I didn't catch. So.
The wages should be, it's a typo, should be 383,400, or excuse me, 690. She picked up the variance and then added didn't move the decimal point on the variance, but the year-to-date amount, $699,348. We'll fix that before it gets published.
So the percentage is correct for the numbers that are in there, but the number that's in there is wrong.
The number that's in there is wrong.
Okay.
The 312% should be actually closer to 65%.
Okay.
Dan?
Does that match the
bottom number
abbreviated report? I'm assuming this is the one that's getting published, Don. This, if you look at me, this is the one.
I'm looking at that too. I knew where you were going with that. No, that number's wrong as well.
Is it wrong in there?
Yeah, it flowed through wrong. We'll fix that before we move forward. I'm glad you
Because
saw that.
188% of salaries and benefits is not good.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. We have we input the numbers and I just missed that evidently, so I apologize.
Other questions or comments for Don? Okay, would someone like to make a motion to approve?
I was going to say, in that case, is the 845% of debt service, is that right?
That one is right, isn't it? Up in Parks and Rec?
Down at Parks and Rec.
Under other governmental funds, a quarterly financial report, other governmental funds, debts. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's good.
that is correct.
Okay.
As is the number up above.
Thank you.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah, that sounded funny.
Just look the other way. Here you go.
Yeah,
Gary's quiet all day, and then he lets out a good joke.
been known to happen.
COPS, certificates of participation.
Right. Other comments? Yes, Dan?
I make a motion to accept this report as presented with
Yeah.
the modifications that we discussed.
Okay, and the
Appreciate
action
that.
is to approve the
Or
report. Are
ex-
you willing
approve
to
the
do
report.
that with those corrections?
Was it approve or accept? Approve the report? Yes, with those corrections.
Second.
Okay, we have Dan's motion and Sue's second. Any other discussion? And hearing none, we'll start the roll call vote with you, Dan.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the report's thereby approved. Thank you, Don. Appreciate your work on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.